hello, hello. How
I
are
am
you,
wonderful. Thanks
Jackie?
for having me today. I'm really glad that we get to talk again.
Me and you both. Our first conversation, I got so many DMs and messages from it because the convo, I guess they said,
Yeah,
was so good. And I love your format because it gets straight to the point. And I'm like, I can take some pointers from you.
love it. I love it.
I am so excited to have you in this conversation today. I want my guests to meet, connect, and know I'm here with Jackie Hermes. She is the founder and CEO of Accelity. And I just need you guys to know, like, not only is she dope and dynamic, but also incredibly kind. The short conversation that we had in the previous interview that we did outside of the actual recorded piece, I was just learning more about your life and what you've done and the children that you're raising. And anytime for me, I'm interviewing with a mom, there's just a special place in my heart because I know how many roles and how many hats that we
hmm
have to wear. And I know that it's not always easy. So thank you for taking the
Yeah, I
time with
really
me today.
appreciate it. Thank you. I'm excited.
Of course, of course, of course. So the only question that I always ask every single guest that comes on here, now every other question is different and tailored, but this is the one that I always ask for every single guest that comes on because we do wear so many hats and we have to, play so many roles. We can sometimes get confused, or we can sometimes allow all of those things to define the who we are based on the what we do. So I always like to ask, outside of all the roles, the titles, the accolades, and everything else, who is it that you say
Hmm.
you are?
That's a really good question. It always goes a rundown of, titles. These are the things that I've done. I definitely think that I, as a
Mhm.
person, have struggled with being tied to like the successes or the achievements versus just being who you are. I mean, who I am actually has
Yeah.
changed a lot in the last few years. Like, I was talking to my husband about
Mhm.
this the other day because we met shortly before COVID, and I was like, traveling all the time. I was on a plane every week or two. I was like in my heels, all dressed up all the time and stuff. And then COVID hit. And yeah,
You were
exactly.
me.
So, oh my God, your outfits, by the way, I know that's not what this podcast is about, but the fashion is so good. I'm always showing my husband, like, look at this, it's beautiful. Anyway, yes, and I have it's changed a lot because I think I found that I like being home more. And I think home is who you're with too, right? Like I got
Yes.
remarried, I added a child in the getting remarried as well. And so now we have three kids and we moved
Yeah.
too. So I started to really like take a lot of pride in like decorating and my space and stuff. But I've become a lot more introverted. I don't know if you can change introvert or extrovert
Ooh.
over the years, but I definitely have shifted where like
Mhm.
I take a lot more care of myself now. I really pride myself in like exercise and taking care of my body and taking care of my mind. I've started believing a lot more in just like the woo woo, I guess, things that I used to not believe in before at all. I was like, oh, manifestation,
Mhm.
whatever, that's a no. Like now I believe in all of that. So I feel like I've changed a lot and I've really gone on like a deep dive inside of myself. So it's, I guess that's how I would
Mm.
explain myself now. And it has changed. So I asked my husband, like, did you know, like what, because I was getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym when I met him, like running out the door to get there at 5:30. And now I'm like, rolling out of bed at 7. I'm moving slower. And it just feels so good to have like
Yeah.
a slow period in my life and like find out more about me, you know?
No, I actually think that that is a beautiful process to even acknowledge the fact that I have changed and now these are my needs in this phase and place of my life. So much like you, I people do not believe me, but I really am an introvert because I have to be out so often. When it's time for me, I have to go every time I go out, no matter what event it is or what I'm doing. As soon as it's over, I have to find a retreat, a silent place, usually in the dark. And luckily, I have a kid who we have very candid conversations about what we need and how we need to feel supported and what we need to show up as our best self. And she allows me, she knows like, okay, if I've done a speaking engagement, mommy doesn't want to talk
hmm
for like an hour because I've had to be on for now hours at a time. And now it's okay, I must go and rest. Like it is a necessary thing. And to have a person in my life who is so close to me, to have her honor that, man, it is amazing. So I totally understand you feeling as though you're more introverted, because that's what I've become. I used to be an ambivert and now I am a total introvert. I spend a lot of time at my house when I'm not traveling, at my house, just in silence, or just, I have slower mornings because it's what I need. And it's okay to honor that
Yeah,
about
I think
yourself, you
there's
know?
so much just hustle culture out there and so much everyone's trying to achieve, achieve, achieve. And I was always like, what's the next milestone? And now like through this
Mhm.
process have just become content with the process that I'm in and growing at the pace that I am. And it's just so much more natural and it's less, it's like, I feel like I'm in much more of a flow state and it's beautiful. So yeah.
Yes, the flow state. And so, was that a challenge for you? Because when you shift from going from, okay, I am an overachiever, and you may not be an overachiever, but I was definitely an overachiever. I'm an overachiever. I am type A. I
Mhm.
can get it done. Give me 10 items, I'll get all 10 of them done within a short time frame. How was that transition going from do to be?
I still struggle with it where when people,
Mm.
when people need something done or something needs to be done around the house, I'm like, give it to me. I'll get it done. Who do we need to contact? Okay. Like I'll call up this person. They're coming on Friday. Great. This person needs to be there. The kids need to be run around and I can get it all done. However, I think the part of like the B part of it is just acting with intention, knowing when I need to slow down, knowing when I'm getting to that point where I feel overwhelmed or burnt out or have a break in the future, because that's happened plenty of times. And just like being, I guess, more aware. So I still am very like action oriented, but it's less to me about the achievement of it all. And it's just about making sure that I'm happy and my people are happy.
I love that. The making sure your people are happy. I was coaching an executive at one of the Fortune 500s. To keep her anonymity, I won't say which one. But what she was saying is that her family was kind of hating her just a little bit. The kids were upset because they didn't get any time. Her partner was really frustrated with her, because she was excelling at work, doing all the things, and she forgot, because in your mind, and in most people's mind, oh, my family will always be there, I'm going to take care of this stuff because it matters the most, or I need to do it right now, they'll always be there. And it's kind of like at some point we're going to have to shift to see that a job will release you whenever they need to. No disrespect to the job, yes, you need to honor, operate in excellence, produce what you need to produce. And also, I believe that we're shifting more towards an environment and an experience where we are honoring the needs of our families more so
Mhm.
now first, our own personal needs and also the needs of those who love us the most, because they don't have to just keep
No,
taking it.
I mean, I got divorced 6 years ago, and that is one of the reasons is we were both working, building companies, and we paid no attention to each other. And then eventually one day it was like, we don't even know each other. We don't even sit together anymore. We don't hang out. We don't, and it's like, so people aren't always going to be there and you don't have to. I think there's, like 50 years ago or past generations, they'd stay in a marriage just because they're married and like, and I know this is a totally different topic, but it's just becoming less common where people are like, you don't have to sacrifice your entire life. I know when I said I was getting divorced, a few of my family members were like, can't you just wait until the kids go to college? And I was like, that's in like 12 years. Yeah, let me
You want me to sit in this
just
for 12?
sacrifice
How?
12 years of my life so that the kids don't have to go through it. And I think that they're stronger for it, and they're better off because they live in two happy homes now instead of one unhappy home. And that's it. I don't know.
Exactly.
So no, I don't think
Listen,
that focusing relentlessly on work is the way to do it, because it can cause a lot of turmoil in your personal life.
absolutely, absolutely. And you know it's so funny, because the topic of this conversation is stuck at start. So y'all, this whole first part was just like off the cuff. You guys got us in our authentic ways. But one of the things that I will say, when I was doing my own research, about you and your journey, I noticed that you speak a lot about growing your mind through the process, which is literally what we were
Mm-hmm.
just discussing. But what does that actually look like to grow through a process? Because that's not
Mm-hmm.
always easy.
Growing your mind through the process. I think the biggest thing for me was learning to look at my behavior and my actions and starting to question what I was doing. I think a lot of people just automatically think they're in the right or their thought process is right. And that's the way, that it should be done. And I think when we grow our
Mhm.
minds and grow our mindset, you have to start looking at yourself and thinking, okay, this is my opinion in this situation. And this person has an opposing opinion. And in their world, that's right to them. And I think you kind of begin to question reality a little bit and see. I used to very much see things in like, yes or no, and they were very categorized. And now I live in this whole world of gray. And
The gray area,
it's like
yes.
where I live every single day. And I think that, and I can change my mind on things given new information. And I think the process of looking at the information that you have and understanding the reality of other people can just open so much, where you can then learn
Mhm.
new habits, new ways of thinking, new processes, versus being stuck in our way, which I think ultimately, doesn't get you anywhere.
I love the fact. So, what it sounds like you're being is
Mhm.
curious and open. And too many times people aren't willing to be both curious and open for fear of what if they found out I'm wrong? Or what if they find out I'm wrong? Or what if they discover that I don't know it all? Or I am still figuring it out? Or I don't have it all together? And I looked at myself in the mirror last week and I was just like, wow, I can't believe I really thought my parents had it all figured out
Mm.
at
Mhm.
36. Like, I was so mean to them to think that they were just these perfect creatures, and not perfect as in they knew it all, but perfect as in they should have this by now. And I'm looking at myself and at this age and I'm just like, I really don't know what
Same.
I'm
And
doing
we're
sometimes.
about the same
Like,
age. And it's like when I got to my 30s, I realized my parents, like, they did some things that were great and some things that maybe, weren't as great. And they were doing the best that they could with the way that they were raised, with the information that they had, and so there, I think when you start looking at it like that, it's not like if someone's underperforming at work, to you as a manager or whatever, a teammate, it can look like underperforming. To them, it might look like they have
mhm,
things going on in their personal lives, or they don't fully understand the expectations of the role, and they don't want to look stupid by asking questions, and whatever it may be. Like, there's just so much nuance and so much gray area that goes into every single situation. And I think once we start looking past
absolutely.
whatever's on the surface, we can just understand each other more. And I think then you can dig into your own mind and begin to understand and change yourself too.
Absolutely. It's still all a part of getting
Yeah.
and being curious. Like understanding that hey, it is not perfect. I do not know all the answers, and just like I'm still figuring out, even those I'm working with, they too are figuring it out. And if it's a matter of ability and skill, okay. Now if it's a matter of will where you just don't want to, okay, that's a whole different
Mhm.
conversation. And we can just, invite you to go and work somewhere else, or or invite you to do something else. But if it's okay, you're going through something, okay, what does supporting you and also making sure that the needs of the business get met,
Yep.
because we still have to make money. If we don't make money,
Yep.
nobody eats, nobody gets what they need to have done, which is what I always tell folks, especially you. So you started at zero and then grew your company to
Mhm.
seven figures. And on paper and in real life, that is amazing. But the one thing that I don't always hear folks talk about is what you learned about yourself and also about working with others, which is kind of what we were just talking about as your business grew. So, what would you say was the most valuable thing that you learned in growing and going from zero to seven
Gosh, I
figures?
mean, when I started, I was very confident. I was like, I got this. I'll figure it out. And as I was like doing the process, I was like, oh Oh my gosh, I have a lot to learn and I know basically nothing. And I mean, I feel like that happens all the time still where I'm 10 years into this and I'm like, "Oh my god, I should have been doing that differently." And so I think
Yeah.
just like getting knocked down a peg, taking my ego and, like pushing it down a little bit and understanding that like I'm a student and I'm going to continue learning and just, I don't know. I would say that's probably my most valuable takeaway.
I love that because it's giving yourself permission to start. And for so many people, they get stuck on the, well, I don't know everything just yet. It is not perfect. And I always like to remind folks, we're on iPhone 14 now. We started at just iPhone 1, and they didn't wait until they had all of the knowledge, tools, resources at iPhone 14. They allowed themselves to simply start knowing that they don't have all the answers, but what they did have in that moment was an MVP, minimum viable product, for those
Hmm.
who don't know what that means. And they could start with where they were, with what they had, and then grow from there. But nobody likes to talk about how much confidence, and sometimes I hate to use this phrase, but like how much balls it takes to go ahead and start when you are in a fearful place. So building up that confidence to just get started is
Yeah.
where many of us fail. And then the whole, you beat yourself up because it's like, well, yikes, why can't I just start? And then you go back and it's literally a never ending circle. Well, oh, I should start. Oh, I don't have enough yet. Oh, dang, why didn't I start? Oh, but I need some more. And it's a never
Hmm.
ending cycle. So what steps would you suggest that folks can take to get started for those who are stuck at start?
For me, I think it's important to determine like what is your process going to be to start, and it has to be a limited thing. So it could be a limited amount of time.
Mm.
It could be like I've worked with people that it takes a really long time to make a decision, and it's because they're getting opinions from a lot of different people. And it's good to get the opinions of others, to read about best practices, to talk to your coach, your mentor, your
Mhm.
parents, whoever you want to talk to. But you can't get opinions from everyone before you make a decision. And I think it's important to know that the cost of waiting is often so much greater than the cost of making mistakes during the process. So if it were me, and I wanted to start a new business, I might say, great, in 3 months, I'm going to open the doors of this company no matter what it looks like. And I'm going to solicit opinions from these people. I'm going to spend this much time researching. And here's like a loose outline of the process I want to follow. I better get a website up, whatever it may be, and give yourself a time limit and hold yourself accountable. It's really hard to hold yourself accountable, I think, when you're starting, because it's so easy to give yourself leeway. Like, oh, well, this came up and therefore I need to give myself a few more weeks. But you can give yourself leeway for years if you want to. So for me, putting
That part.
some kind of boundaries on it always helps.
So you just said, and I'm going to need you to repeat that again for the people in the back. But I think you said the cost of waiting is greater than the cost
Mhm.
of mistakes. Wait a minute. That piece, I just want to just a little deep dive in, just real quick. I'm gonna stick our toe in it. What does that mean? Like for me, I know in how I interpreted it is you waiting could literally be the difference between a deal coming through or an opportunity, because when opportunity knocks at the door, someone has to actually be behind it to open it, or else it
Exactly.
moves on to the next door. So that's how that was my interpretation of it. But what about that piece? What does that mean, and why is it so important to just go
I
ahead and
have
go press
seen this
play?
play out in my life so many times that now I thoroughly believe it. So, for example, I started hiring employees probably 2 years in, and I had an account manager on my team. I had two employees at the time,
Mhm.
and we had a client that was paying us, but they were not being very nice to her. And I was like, oh, my gut said, we need to part ways with them. But my head said, we need money, da 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 da, like all the, and I waffled and I tried to work on the situation and figure it out. And what happened is she quit. So the cost of waiting is that I had to rehire and I had to do all of that work during that time instead of dealing with the situation. And I think fear really comes into play, especially when we're in a tough spot, when you're starting something new or you have to have a hard conversation or whatever it may be. I've just seen it happen so many times where you wait and it drags people, anyone that's involved in that process or anyone that's watching you do it, they begin to lose confidence as you wait and waffle and take forever to make decisions. And so I would rather start, make mistakes and adjust from there than, all of the potential negative impacts of indecision.
Ooh, yes, because those negative impacts, those are the things that, okay, now that you've waited, now you have to deal with the consequences of
Hmm.
what waiting got you. And it's a thing that we all deal with. Like, no one's perfect, so you're not going to always, oh, I started. Sometimes, there will be a, oh man, you get hit in the head real quick, and it's like, okay, wait, okay, so I know now, don't go left because left takes me here. Let's try going right. And then, knowing, for me, I've always learned more from my mistakes than I ever have from my successes. The successes feel great and the mistakes really don't
Nope.
feel as good. However, what I've learned from them has catapulted me and to help me grow in ways that the wins just never would have been
Yep.
able to
That is
facilitate.
exactly right. And I think those mistakes, they can be so painful and you learn, I'm not doing that again. Whereas the successes,
Yes.
especially when in the rare instances when the successes come relatively easy, it's like, oh, I'm awesome and off to the next. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot more from all the many, many mistakes that I've made.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure it's been quite a bit as we've grown, because it's just a thing. Just like you don't come out of the womb being able to hold your head up. Well, except for these new pandemic babies, they come out of the womb holding their head up, playing on cell phones. They're different. But for the rest of us, you have to crawl before you walk. You have to learn to, walk before you run. Like,
Mhm.
there's a process. And in learning, not just about the business, but also about yourself, especially you as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, with, folks under you who, you are responsible for
Mhm.
their livelihood. And that level of pressure can be intense sometimes. So, how do you not only identify, clarify, and advocate, but how do you nurture and even sometimes just simply ask for the support that you've needed to ensure that as you're continuing to grow, that you're also honoring you too?
Asking for help. I am not great at that. I have put systems in place with people that where they know I am bad at asking for help and they will help me like put myself in a place where I am comfortable asking for help. So, for example, I have a leadership team. Two of the women on my leadership team have been with me pretty much since the company started, 7 and 8 years, which is pretty crazy. And they know, when you work together for that amount of time, I know based on even on a Zoom screen, if they're like acting in a certain way or is like their mannerisms, or we build time as an agency. So if I can see they're building a bunch of time, I'm like, what's going on? Right. And it gives them a comfortable place to ask for help. And they ask me all the time too, like, hey, I noticed that this is taking a while. Can I help you with that? And I'm like, well, now that you say that, I suppose I could use some help. So putting those systems in place, I think, is good. And then just having some people in your personal life that you are comfortable with saying, like, I can't right now, like I'm getting run down, or I have this cycle where I will get really stressed and things will start building. And then I feel myself like on the verge of getting sick. And then I start thinking it's all funny, like, ha ha ha, I'll catch up someday. And by the time I get to like cracking jokes about how I feel, that's like the really bad part. And now I know, great. When I get to that place, I need to tell my husband, like, I have to chill out right now. I need to move some stuff off my plate. I need to start delegating and deleting and, like helping myself get to a better place. So I don't know if I have good advice on asking
Yes.
for help outside of, if you're not good at it, put systems in place where you'll be able to ask for help.
Believe it or not, you just did a process that I teach executives and leaders when I'm coaching them. I call it leader alarms. And it's identifying what you do as a human when you're on yellow, when you're on orange, and when you're on red. And you literally just said, the moment I know that I'm starting to joke, for me, if we were in a session, I say, okay, now
Mm-hmm.
you're on orange. You're on orange because you're joking about the fact that
Mm-hmm.
you're about to crack. And so that is an identifier that says, hey, this is where I'm at. I need your support without you having to physically ask for help, because lots of us don't feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable doing so. And what I always do, and you literally you did it. So you are
Look
actually, you
at me
can give
go.
advice on it because you did it. Because you did it and you didn't even know you were doing it. But I always suggest I have an emoji that I would send to my partner or to my sister or to a really close friend of mine. And it's an emoji that has the swirls. And one of my business partners actually showed me the emoji. I had never seen the
Mm-hmm.
emoji before in my life. But when she sends that emoji to me, or if I send it to her, she knows that I'm spiraling because it's a spiral
Mm-hmm.
type emoji. And it's okay. I'm at orange. I'm about to crack. I'm going to be crying in public. Things are about to,
Uh-huh.
implode. And so having someone or having folks who you feel safe enough to go to, it really does help to bring you off of the ledge so that major, balls, or as I think Tiffany Defood, major balls, the glass balls is what she calls
Yeah.
it, those aren't being dropped. So no, you should give yourself a little more credit because you actually are doing what many coaches suggest to their clients to do when they are consulting with them about how to ensure as a leader, because there's so much on your plate, how to bring yourself back to homeostasis.
Well,
So
thank
no,
you.
actually
I
great
will
job.
remember that now and stop telling myself I'm not good at it. Those are, when you get those internal, um, like the stories you tell yourself, oh, I'm bad at this. I'm not good at this.
Mm-hmm.
So now you help me change my internal story. That's great.
Yeah, see, and this is why I love these conversations, because it allows us to take a break, a real quick break, to have a conversation that walks us through, or helps us to see things differently, and then
Hmm.
we go from there. But no, so this conversation for me, it was just so I needed this, um, just because my own, okay, going through a lot, doing all the things, transitioning and everything else, knowing and hearing someone else say it is not perfect. Things, you do sometimes have to shift, and you do acknowledge that you're overwhelmed, and these are the ways in which you do it. It's like, okay, see, you're not alone. All right, great. Now you can go take your
Yep.
rest and keep going. So thank you for this. But now, where can we stay connected? Where can we go?
Yes.
I want to know
So
all the things.
JackieHermes.com has a bunch more about me. I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn. So if you want to chat, definitely DM me there. Give me a follow. I would love that. And that's probably it. LinkedIn is probably the best place to get in touch with me.
Cool, cool. And you guys, if you listen to the podcast consistently, you can find me everywhere on Beyonce's internet at Alechia Reese, and it's spelled very interestingly. My parents knew I'd be unique. It's Alechia, last name Reese, Reese. Stay connected with us. You can join our community at gotvaluenation.com, or join us on any of the things. I'm literally everywhere and all over, like I said, Beyonce's internet. So until next time, I will
Thank
see
you.
everyone
Bye.
soon. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Got Value podcast. Remember, there is true value in purpose, and the greatest discovery of your life will be exactly what yours is. Stay connected with us at gotvaluenation.com.